My name's Andrew, and in this video I want to talk about escapisms. So I think we're all aware of what they might be. A lot of people turn to the pretty common ones, which is alcohol and drugs, and food is really probably even bigger than those two actually, because most people do that in some way. And the reason I bring that up is that turning to escapisms means that we're turning away from our problems, the things that are causing mental anguish for us. When things come up, we think, oh, the pain. So we're just pain avoidant essentially. We're trying to move away from the pain. So we think by taking certain substances, doing certain things, we can avoid the pain. And we do for a time, as people know. But ultimately, you're not going to get anywhere. So as much as I fully understand it, because I've been there myself, I was a big one in sort of escaping away from my pains and things like that. And I think a lot of the reasons too is because we don't understand them. We don't really understand what's going on for us. We just feel this discomfort. In some way, we don't feel joy. And we just want to soothe ourselves. I mean, that's what these things are really about, soothing ourselves for a time. But, that works for a little while. But something I discovered many years ago with that too, it's a bit like getting a loan from the bank. That you might borrow $1,000, but you end up paying back a lot more than $1,000. And that's a bit like when we go to escapisms. That ultimately, in the long run, we actually pay a lot more, and we don't resolve our issues. So what I have found with these feelings, that when we want to feel like we want to turn to things, it's like, well, if we stop for a moment and sit with it and think, okay, what is really going on for me? What am I feeling? And why am I feeling it? And we sit with the pain, not run from it. I mean, you don't get anywhere. It's a bit like if your physical body, if you've got a massive gouge in your arm or something like that, ignoring it and just walking away, thinking, well, I don't want to deal with that. Well, it's still there. It's still there, and if you don't deal with it, it could become a real big problem for you. And we see that in people's lives, and it does become a big problem for them. Now food is a big one, because there's a lot of different reasons why people feel or use food. We have an addiction to it, there's no doubt about that, and not just sugar. It's not just the sugar, it's other things as well. But running from our pain and moving towards food, well, ultimately creates more problems, because a lot of time people put on weight, they eat the wrong foods. Now they create another addiction, and a whole bunch of things happen with that, and there's habits and stuff associated with that, with soothing ourselves. It's almost very symbolic that the emotions are coming up, and we're trying to eat food to push them back down. So that's not going to get you anywhere. And it's interesting, if you actually stop to analyse your own behaviour, that a lot of the time when we think we're hungry, there's different reasons for hunger, but a lot of the time we think we're hungry, it can be an emotional thing coming up. So, I said there is the addiction aspect too, that people are addicted to the sugars and the way it makes you feel. But again, that'll bring your mood up, and then it'll drop you back down again. Then you'll need to get your next fix. So we're not going to get anywhere running away from our problems. And I know that a big part of that is that even if people say, I don't want to run away from them, or they're not conscious of it, or maybe some of you don't even believe what I'm saying with this, that's fine. But the truth is that that's just generally what we have going on a lot of the time, because it's quite overwhelming. It's very overwhelming when things are coming up on an emotional level about what do we do, how do we deal with it. And that's the thing, we don't really necessarily know how to deal with it. So it is overwhelming, and you just want to blank it out, make it go away. Not everybody does that. Some people don't take anything, but they've still got the problem. So we've got to work out what's going on for ourselves. So there's obviously a trigger point. Usually something happens, and I think triggers are actually very useful to us. So I don't run from those. I think, wow, anytime I've felt upset or anything, since I've learnt this, I think, what is going on? Like, why have I become upset about that? What does it really mean? And I've learnt, I suppose, different ways, techniques, methods, tools, whatever it is, over the years to go about looking at these things in a certain way, so that I know that they're useful to me. Because once I find something that's upsetting me in some capacity, I know that I've got work here to do. And when I do the work, find what it is and start working through it, in time I'll find that, well, I start to change again as a person, that you basically start breaking, in some cases, old patterns. So a lot of things are showing you where you need healing, where you've got a weakness in yourself. And that's a good thing, because as you do that and you work on things, you will start to change in different ways. Quite surprising, actually, how things start to change around you too, the people. Let's say you've got a weakness in some particular area, and maybe you might even see a pattern perhaps in certain people that you keep attracting to you because of that weakness, and they're showing you something in a way that, not that they're consciously doing it, but you're just attracting these same sort of people in as a part of a pattern. When you see what that is, and you don't say, I don't want this anymore, this is not healthy for me, you'll start to change, and you'll start to find new people start coming into your life. It's really quite amazing. Like I've been around narcissists, for instance, and I've seen patterns, for instance, in the past with all the relationships I had in my life. I thought, when I had my heart broken in one particular one, I was like, oh, I don't want to feel that again. That's just an awful feeling. And I thought, why did I allow this to happen? What was going on inside of me? And I sat with it for a long time. And I mean, I learned some things along the way which helped me with processing that. But the first thing I looked at was thinking, what is the key or what can I find, at least within all of these relationships, that has a commonality about it? And I found it. And this was some narcissistic tendencies, and I traced that back to where that would have come from. Anyway, I won't get into the whole thing. But the point of this is that when I started doing the work and I identified it and started finding out what the beliefs I had about myself about that, what the emotions were attached to it, all that sort of stuff, I started to find that and then release all these patterns. That just changed. I changed. These types of people no longer had an effect on me anymore, and new people started coming into my life. It's very, very strange, but it's such an interesting thing how powerful this is to work on ourselves, to not run to escapisms. It's not helping you. It's we've got to if you really want to get better in any kind of these areas, you got to deal with the stuff. You just got to face it. And there is a bit of work, yes, there is, but it's I mean, what's the alternative? I mean, you're just going to continue suffering, really, otherwise. And honestly, it's quite liberating. And as I've said in my previous video, just that I am such a different man now than I have been, and it's continuously renewing as I don't run from my problems anymore. And in fact, I don't really say I've really got a lot of problems. I mean, I wouldn't even say they're problems at all. I've had some challenges for sure, and I've got some things I'd perhaps like to be a certain way than they are. But ultimately, I've become a very, very empowered person, empowered man, and that's capable for all of us. But we can't do that through running away from our problems. Okay, it's just not going to happen. And I can see it in people. And look, there's no judgment from me. I get it. I know how much pain people have, and I have spoken to some people, and they've told me some serious traumas in their lives. But some of those people, not all of them, but some of those people, they're quite remarkable how they've overcome that. They've overcome it. Some of the stuff I've heard about people's stories, and it's extremely traumatic. But they've overcome it, and they're in different ways. And I won't go into how maybe they've done that in some ways. But what I really want to say, I suppose, in this video is, I mean, I think we all know that if we have an escapism of some sort, that we have it, and there's different reasons why that is. Again, it essentially always comes back down to pain. We're all pain avoidant. We just want to avoid pain, and it's challenging to look at ourselves, look at our lives, to make realizations. Because some of those realizations, look, to be honest, most of the really deep ones are seldom pleasant. It's not pleasant to do facing things at all. And that's another reason why people don't do it. It's sometimes what people refer to as the hero's journey to undertake this in self-development, personal development. And it will liberate you in the long run. But again, there's layers, but you will get to a place though of quite a lot of peace, a lot of contentment, and a sense of power that you don't tend to be rocked and shifted by life, no matter what throws at you so much. You're like, yeah, okay, you might have a few days where you're like, it can be a bit challenging and maybe you're too little, but overall, you're actually quite resilient. It's a rather great thing, because a lot of good things come from that. So talking about it in terms of intimate relationships, and say you're interested in that, and maybe you've been quite codependent in the past, and maybe you still are, you'll find that when you get this strength within inside yourself, that you'll start to meet other people like that too, and you're independent and they won't be dependent on you and you're not on them. So when you come together as a union, it's very powerful, because it's like, I don't need to be with this person, I choose to be with them. And I'm not going to be, maybe sad if they leave or whatever, but even then, you'll start to find the types of people come into your life. They're starting to, they're so similar to yourself in certain ways. Even some of them have very, very similar experiences. It's also said, it's so fascinating how this just plays out. But if I can say anything in this short video, it's to bring awareness to yourself about it, about your escapisms, and think, well, if you're not aware of them, ask yourself, if you're overdoing it with the alcohol or the drugs or the gambling or the sex addiction or what it is, what are you running from? What are you afraid to face? What is the pain that's so bad that you don't want to face it? And really, if you don't do it, what's going to change? You might think maybe as a young person that, well, I've got time and that. But look, I've met people who 4 decades plus and they haven't done anything, and they're not probably going to do much, if anything at all, and they're still no better off. It hasn't just magically all just changed for them. In fact, a lot of the time it gets a lot worse for them for different reasons. And it's a shame, because we can do this, and we can do this a lot of times by ourselves, and I will share things, as I said, in other videos as time goes on, about how we do this. But you need to take some time to do it, and not be afraid to take it on. We've all got different things. Look, to be honest, from talking to people, it doesn't matter how good your parents have been as you're growing up, there's still something. Everybody's got something that they carry around, and you could have the greatest parents and still have self-esteem issues, not think you're worthy of, quality relationship or a certain type of lifestyle, whatever it is. It could be anything. We're all different. So we've all got something, but being aware of it's the first step. And, I just ask you, I suppose, for yourself now, what is it that you need to overcome? What is holding you back in life? Are you even aware of those things? A lot of the time, people haven't really consciously thought about it. And that's the beginning, to actually take that on and think, well, you know what, there is something that's not happy about my life in some way. And, why not? What is it? And you start asking yourself these sort of questions, and your answers will come. And sitting in silence a lot of time to ask yourself these questions, sitting there and just looking back inside yourself, just thinking to myself, why do I feel this way? What's going on for me? Just really start prodding your subconscious mind and sit there within the silence and thinking, I don't, like you might be thinking, I don't want to feel like this anymore, or I want more of this. What's holding me back? What is it? What can I do about these? Open-ended questions to yourself. You start to get, I guess, some sort of momentum in that sort of way of thinking. So look, I'm not going to go too far into this video. I'd like to have something a bit more structured, so I can sort of give you maybe some ways to go about doing this. But this is to bring some awareness to you. So anyway, I wish everyone great day, great evening, wherever you are, night. Again, I'm down at the beach still, and it's getting sort of later in the day. Still beautiful though. Wonderful weather out here. This is actually the middle of winter here. You wouldn't think so, but it's just beautiful. So anyway, I wish you all a wonderful day, night, wherever you are. And if you've got any questions, please leave them in the comments below.